Yeah, we're live. I wanted to get back on and let you guys know I'm down at West Tech doing a bunch of testing, so I'm over at Mark's right now. But I've got the 4.8 liter LS motor, the junkyard motor, up on the dyno. And we have the M90 supercharger from the 3800 V6 installed. And this time, unlike the last time I tried to run it, it's actually working. Now we made a couple of changes, so we instead of the last time I tried to run it, we just took the L67, the early supercharger, and we tried to run it with that, with the stock pulley and the stock throttle body and stuff. I just had that, and we made the plate for it. We made the adapter plate, and we wanted to see if it would work. It didn't work that well. The problem is that it just doesn't, at that blower speed, there wasn't enough airflow in that supercharger to support that motor, because the motor was making 370 horsepower or something, because it was a cammed 4.8 liter. So there wasn't enough airflow in that supercharger to, support that NA power level. So it actually made less than the NA motor did. Well, this time that's not happening. So we made a couple of changes. This 4.8 liter is a little bit different. So a couple things that happened so far, and then right now I've only run the supercharger with the 3.8 pulley, because we have an aftermarket 3.8 pulley, because we have a Gen 5 supercharger. So right off the bat, it's a different supercharger. The Gen 5 is better. It has a bigger throttle body. We have a radius inlet on that throttle body. And then we have an aftermarket 3.8 pulley on it, a ZZP one, because we've got a hub on this one, which allows us to easily change the pulleys out. And naturally, last time we didn't do that, and I'm going to spin the blower faster now. But I have good news for you. The supercharged combination with the M90 on it, and right now the way that this is configured on the LS is that we have this M90 and then an adapter plate, and the adapter plate bolts onto a Holley high ram. So it's a 4.8 with the high ram on it, which would not be my choice, especially given the RPM range that we're running. But this thing also has a Brian Tooley Truck Norris NSR cam on it, so no springs required, so it just has the stock springs on it, and you'll be amazed at how high we're revving this thing with the stock springs and that camshaft. But we have the adapter plate, and it allows me to bolt the blower on. So we ran the thing NA with just the lid on top of the high ram, the way that you do in a big 105 millimeter throttle body. And then we could just remove the lid and put the blower right on and hook the belt up. And this time also the other difference is when we ran the NA motor, I ran it with all the accessories the way that we did with the supercharger. So they both had the factory water pump, they had the alternator and the power steering. Although with the supercharger, we're not running the alternator. Now, the alternator doesn't have a load on it or anything, it's just spinning. But the way that the belt is configured, we bypass the alternator. So, you guys can argue about how much power you think spinning the alternator is worth. It's probably not a lot. It might be a little bit without the load on it, without the alternator load on it. But, that's kind of what happens when you do this stuff. There's no way, the way that the belt ran with the supercharger, it was much better to not have the alternator on there. But they both ran with the accessory drive on it, so which is good. It's a little bit more even test, because the last time we ran it with the 3800 with the other blower, we ran it with just the NA motor ran with the Zero electric water pump and no accessories on it the way that we normally do it. And then we just installed all that stuff because it was necessary to run all of the accessories for us to configure the belt that we wanted. But I got a couple of different belts, because when we go to the different pulley sizes, we need different belt sizes as well. So we got that taken care of. So today, I want to let you guys know, today I'm going in and we're going to run the other pulleys on this to find out what happens. The other test that I'm doing today is we're going to run, when we have this motor NA, I want to demonstrate what happens when we run different flywheel weights. So we've got a steel flywheel and a steel drive plate, and then we have a flex plate, which I wanted an aluminum flywheel, which would have been good, but the flex plate actually probably is lighter than an aluminum flywheel is. We have the flex plate and then a smaller diameter aluminum drive plate. So we should see a pretty big difference. I'm going to weigh both of them for the video so you guys can see that. So we should see a pretty big difference in you know, flywheel and drive plate weight, and we're seeing a little bit of a difference in the diameter of the drive plate. So I'm going to take and we'll weigh both of those. We'll have a comparison, and I'll give you the measurements too. So guys, if you know, so my calculation guys can do the moment of inertia stuff if they want to do that. But I just want to see if there's going to be a change in power. We did this before on a small block Chevy, and definitely saw a change in power. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to do that test as well. And then I'm going to put the stock truck intake manifold back on there, and we're going to run that because I kind of want to compare the truck manifold to the high ram on this to show people, you know, also what you would be getting. Because if a guy was going to put a supercharger on this and he was going to use a high ram or a low ram with this kind of adapter plate just to be able to put a blower on there, that this might be a little bit closer to what you would be getting. I just wanted to, this just made it easy for me to do to keep the high ram on it and run it NA that way we could see just only what's happening with boost, but we could also see what's happening now when we change the runner length even more. The truck manifold is going to be a better match for this. You know, this is a pretty small truck Norris cam in the 4.8. And it's going to want to run in an RPM range. It's going to be more conducive to the longer runner truck manifold, I think. So we'll be able to see that. It will be cool. And then obviously the next step is I'm going to put 2 of these on there. So we'll run this one and see how far we can take it up. And this is what most normal people would do. You know, a guy might be apt to go get a junkyard blower and get an intake manifold, put it on there, and then run it so he could have boost on his thing. And as we're seeing now, it looks like that this is a viable option, especially when we spin the blower faster. Only the guys can decide, hey, is this a, financially, does this make sense? We'll have to figure out. This is always the problem, is that there's always one thing that causes the combination to be expensive, because let's face it, you can go get a blower cheap. I mean, guys are throwing these things away. I probably have 4 or 5 of them, but just because you have a cheap blower, you don't have the hub yet, and you don't have a high ram intake manifold with fuel rails. You're going to need injectors if you make more power with a supercharger anyway, but you might be able to get cheap stock ones for the kind of power level this thing's going to be at. But let's see. Let's find out if we put the other blower pulleys on there and I can run this thing up and make some boost. Right now with the 3.8 pulley, the most boost that we're seeing is like 1.5 pounds. It's 111 kPa is where we're at on that. So it's still doing the same thing that it was doing before. So all the people that are saying, oh yeah, the bypass valve is open, you don't know what you're doing or whatever, this is what's happening. That's not what's happening, but we are seeing just a little bit of boost with it, which is good, which means we're going in the right direction. And we're going to see when we put the 3-inch pulley on there, we should have boost. There should be a significant change going from a 3.8 pulley to a 3.0 pulley. And then when we go down to the 2.6, we should see an even bigger change. So let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? How much boost do you think we'll see going to the 3-inch pulley from the 3.8-inch pulley? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And then let me know what you think when we go to the 2.6 pulley. And by the way, the gentleman who was asking me, was it Boost in the Office? Might have been one of you guys, was asking me about running the bubbler, taking the pipe plug out to see how much boost we'll lose. And I'll do that test too, so that you guys can see, if there's a leak there, how much is a leak worth? Like, we'll get an idea, because the back of the high ram has a couple of holes in it that we can open up and provide boost leaks essentially. You can see, hey, if we have a pipe plug out, does it lose 1/10 of a pound? Does it lose 1 pound? Does it lose 2 pounds? How much does it lose when you have a leak like that? The other thing that I had to do on this one is when we put the Gen 5 blower on here, because the plate was originally cut for the early L67 blower, I had to recut the plate and obviously make the opening bigger, but that was easy. Just put it up on the mill and mill out the back section, because the front section was started exactly the same, and also the bypass valve was in the same position too. The hardest thing about all this was hooking the throttle linkage up, and I finally figured out how to do that. There's got to be a better way. I need to weld something together that would be like a what I need is like a rotary throttle linkage to make this work, or put a different throttle body on there. But what I did was cut up the factory drive-by-wire throttle body and just make it into a, you know, super richy, really drive-by-wire, baling wire throttle body, and it's working, and it's going to wide open throttle, and that's really that's kind of all we care about on this thing. But it's working good. It's working good. The little blower. This is the 4.8 liter that you see on the channel, where I didn't know if it was ever going to run again, because when I bought this one, it had all kinds of problems. This is the one that had the flat camshaft, and we had to take the camshaft out. It had at least one bad lifter that we had to replace. It also had, this one had the rocker that the guy tried to glue in place, and he tried to drill out the broken rocker stud, and ended up, troughing the mounting hole for, this thing had a couple of bent push rods, and one of the ports was just filled up with, there's a ton of carbon in there. It was hard to even get it all out. So this is that motor, but it seems to be working good. I like when the junkyard stuff comes back, and we've run a lot of runs, and we've run this thing all the way to 7,000 RPM with the stock springs and this Brian Tooley cam. So I was pretty surprised that I forgot that this, I knew that this had the cam in it, and I was thinking whenever we put cams in it, we put some kind of spring in it, but I think that this thing still has the stock springs in it. So it's revving out pretty good, and this, it's making good power. This thing naturally aspirates making like 375, and we're like at 385 or so with the blower, and the blower's a little bit better in a couple spots with this one. And obviously with the blower, even at 1.5 pounds, I have less timing in the blower application. I think I have it down at 25 degrees, and the motor wants 29 degrees. So maybe I could get away, this is running all on pump gas too, this is all on 91. Maybe I could get away with running NA timing on it, but it's got boost, it's just a little bit, it's got boost. I feel better that it's, if it has boost, it has less timing. I don't want to hurt it. And if we get to where we run the 3-inch pulley and the 2.6 pulley, and it's making boost, and we have 7, 8, 10 pounds or something like that. I don't know if it's going to get that high, but if it does, that'll be good. Then I will also do an E85 test. So we'll run some E85 on there and see what's, see if we can get a little bit more power. So we're at 385 now. I'm hoping maybe with all that, could we have a 500 horsepower M90, because we've made on the 3800 with this 2.6 pulley on the 3800 imported head and cam, we've made like 450. So we know that much is there, and we're starting out with a whole bunch more power now. So could we get to 500 on the 85 with that small pulley in this setup? It would be interesting to see. That would be kind of cool. I think guys would like to have that. Okay, so we'll see what you guys got. Sitting here bored to death on Sunday morning and knows Richard's live. That's right. See, I'm helping. I'm helping save everything, right? M90 on a flathead. An M90 on the trophy 4-cylinder is definitely a possibility. I like that idea. I think that it needs a junkyard kind of supercharger. But I just like the fact that it's if you have enough pulley on this thing that it's actually working and making boost on the 4.8, because and I was thinking about, like, if you put this blower on a stock motor without this camshaft in it, you definitely would see more boost than this. So it might be a viable deal for a guy, a 4.8 in a truck, to put an M90 on there. Although I don't know that a high ram and an M90 are going to fit even in a truck application, but the low ram might fit. So it would be interesting. Somebody needs to do a dedicated blower manifold casting so that guys can run all these like inexpensive blowers on there. So if you had a blower manifold like that would be kind of cool. So what's everybody else doing this weekend? What are you guys testing? Speaking of fuel, yeah, I've seen Cletus's video. That's been up for quite a while. It's awesome. The Trophy 4-cylinder is done and ready to test now, and I got the superchargers back from Torque Storm, so those are ready to go on the Pontiac, both the 350 and the Trophy 4-cylinder. You're on an 8.1 on a 5.3 computer. Yes, you can. I don't know that that's true. I don't know about the harness and the crank sensor wiring is different on the 8.1, and it depends on what year 5.3 computer you have. Thought I was going to get some sleep. No. Putting my fresh built flathead into a 50 Mercury. That's cool. Testing aviation fuel and the brush trimmer to get tumbleweeds. So you try to step up your game on the fuel to get through the heavy stuff. I'm going to scroll back here and see if I can answer some questions. Why not do twins? That's planned. That's the goal now. I wanted to test one on there to get this going and make sure that it was going to work, and then we're looking at building the deals for two of them. Cruising the RX-48 in the annual Clay County Car Show in Alabama. Nathan, all right, that's cool. That's been the M90 to 20,000. I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that. I think if they take them to 20,000, don't they have bearing upgrades in them and stuff when they do that? 426 Hemi and a 72 Pro Stock Duster. Oh, that's very cool. Trying to get some money for a Fox body, that's good. 455 Buick. An Omega, nice. Admiral, what's up? Speaking of mod motor powers. 4 VV10s running. I know I saw a little clip of them starting it up. That's pretty cool. 4-valve V10. Wisconsin's warm out there. Yeah, it's in the 80s here in Southern California. It's kind of. Am I your new buddy here? I got a cat. Mark's cats, making friends. I checked out all the M90 forums. They often hit 20,000. I know the Roush one is different as well, but they do 20,000 on those. Okay. I forgot what I'll need to measure the truck. We're just using a truck damper, and I don't have. I wouldn't spin it that fast with this belt setup. I would need to do a dedicated thing. So waiting on the V10 video. Yep. So when will you dyno test it for them? I don't know. Is it in that kind of condition? Is it dyno ready? Can you mix 2-stroke oil with aviation fuel? That shouldn't be any different. Building a junkyard 6.2 that I bought for $200. 6.2 is going to be an aluminum one. That's nice. Those things can easily be $2,000. Those things are not cheap. And I'm excited to get back to the dyno and finally make some boost. That plate and stuff's been sitting around for a long time. I think because I didn't want to modify the adapter to work on the Gen 5 blower, but it's working good. Is it okay to spray paint an intake manifold? What application is it for? If it's an aluminum one, the thought is that it doesn't allow it to for the heat to come out, but lots of guys do it. On the path to 1,000 horsepower, found the limits of my 700 R4. Yeah, it's the limit of that transmission is probably before that. Yeah, 6.2. Oh, an LM7. Oh, the composite manifold? Yeah, you can paint that. I've seen guys dip them and do all kinds of stuff. They usually smooth them and do crazy stuff with them. So yeah, you can, because that, I mean, let's face it, it's a truck manifold that works really well, but it doesn't really look that good. Oh, got to. And this thing has mufflers on it too, so it has accessories and mufflers, so it's like the testing's real world. Peoples. But it'll be cool to get two of them side by side, because I have another Gen 5 blower that has a hub on it that we can put pulleys on, so we can just match the pulleys on both of them. And you know, if we get this thing, it's making 400 or 450 horsepower or whatever, and you have two of those, that's a lot of power. For daily driver, just adding fun, 96 351 Windsor and a 64 Galaxy. I like those Galaxies. Simply add boost with ring gap, or do top end, do boost later. Wish I could get a Super Duty 6.2 for $200. Yeah, any 6.2. Those are pretty pricey. Got an 05 CTSV, an LS6, has headers, and a Vortec T1 or TI. Wanted to do a cam change. It's got a cam. It's got a stock cam in it now. There's lots of good camshafts, but it depends on more what you want the cam to do. NA, that's how I would pick that. There are lots of good. The LS6 cam is a pretty good cam, but you can get something that's going to make a good bit more power than an LS6. With changing the metering rods on your, what do you have, an Edelbrock carburetor? Help low end torque. Only if it's lean down there. Do you know if it's lean down there? Ford 6.2. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about, but the LS stuff is expensive. I don't know what the 6.2 is because I've never seen any. I mean, I don't know what the price is. We've never seen any at this wrecking yard that I go to, or the other wrecking yards. So I don't know what the pricing is on those. Turbo size for a twin turbo, 350 on pump gas, maximum RPM 5,500. Eric, what's the power level that you want for the turbos? That will tell us what size turbos to put on there. Z85 pump gas. It is here. It comes from the pump. When I say pump gas, though, normally I mean, you know, 87, 89, 91 here, and they have 93 in other parts. I always say E85 if it's E85. They're $1,000 here, depending on mileage. Cool. 600 to 700 horsepower, and do you definitely want to do twins though? If you definitely want to do twins, then something like the GT30 76s would be good for that. Gotta love the Thanksgiving weekend 50% off sale. I like when they do those. The one around here doesn't do a 50% anymore. They do a 40, and unfortunately, it's not on everything in the yard now. They have a special section where it doesn't apply. The aluminum 6.2 was a gamble. It had a drop valve seat and wrecked a piston, so I bought a new piston and junkyard head. I'm gonna send it. Okay, well that's still a good deal as long as when it dropped the valve and hurt the piston, that it didn't hurt the cylinder too. You don't have to sleeve it or anything, right? Smells rich. Hooker long tube headers and 3-inch exhaust. I mean, all you can do really is try it and see, because if you don't have an air fuel meter on it, which is a good idea to help you tune it, if you have an air fuel meter on it and you can see what it's doing, then you'll know if it will help it. Why does my engine lose power when I lower my target idle from 850 to 750? What are you tuning it with that you're doing that? Have you done a video on power losses and RPM range on mid-length headers versus long tube headers? 6 liter, the red hot cam. I've done shorties and long tubes, and you can look at what's happening between that. The mid-length headers are still not long enough to have scavenging like a long tube does. So most times they're going to act more like a shorty header, but they're going to be between those two. So if you just draw a line between the header tests, you can kind of get an idea. I'm in your area. What wrecking yard do you suggest for small block and big block Chevy parts? The one that I go to over here on, I think, is it on Milliken maybe? That they've got lots of small blocks, and I normally see big blocks there too. Try to keep back pressure down. Heard it was bad with pump gas. Yeah, if it's excessive. I mean, I don't know how much boost you're running on pump gas and what you're sizing the turbos to do. And run 93 octane with 12 to 1 safely if the cooling system is up to par. If you're running 12 to 1, what camshaft are you running 12 to 1 with? Because if you have a really big camshaft in it, it's going to help reduce detonation. Our OEM 29-pound injector is good for a stage 2 cam. So if they're 30s times 30 times 16, 480. What stage 2 cam is it? Is it a stage 2 truck cam? What is it? But those will be enough. What's the benefit of a dome piston? People put dome pistons in over a flat top to raise the compression. The flame travel starts to go away at a certain point on dome pistons, in my opinion. But if our guys are trying to get lots of compression, that's what they do. Ram truck. I don't know about your idle thing because I don't play with that much when I'm doing stuff on the engine dyno. It's pretty easy for me to get it to idle, but I don't have it out driving around. Yeah, the air fill meters are kind of cheap, so it's a good thing to have. It helps you tune, everything, idle, transition, part throttle, while you're cruising for your fuel mileage, and then also, wide open throttle stuff. How do you get more power out of a reverse flow engine? Yeah, are you talking about the hot V engines where you're using the intake as the exhaust and exhaust as the intake? You need to put it back the way that it goes. It's because the intake needs more airflow, and it has. That's why we have bigger valves on the intake and bigger ports on the intake. And then when people try to reverse those, if that's what you're talking about, that's just a bad idea. I mean, it looks fancy, but a friend of mine had a local shop build his Gen 2 Hemi. I tried to warn him. Guy retarded cam timing 3 teeth. That's not good. I got a piston. Yeah, exhaust valve. Yeah, that's not good. The cam timing has to be right, otherwise bad things are going to happen. Lightweight or steel flywheel on a 4.8 with a dual plane. On that, I would just run a stock flywheel. Is 850 target idle too high? Not for a manual trans. It might be a little high for an automatic. Yeah, this is one of Mark's cats. Have you introduced the House Panther? He has like a few of them. Summit Pro LS Stage 3 and double valve springs on 4.8, no matter what lifters, push rods, or still sounds like a sewing machine. Is it, what is it? Is it valve clatter? What is it? More than 10 pounds of boost using your selections from to 350 boost video. Anybody ever used an LS4 intake on an LM7? I have. I've tested it. It's a terrible idea. Do you still recommend the Extreme Energy 262 cam on a 2-valve? I'm trying to do the unheard of and reach 450 wheel horsepower NA with a carb setup. If you were trying to make a lot of power, that's not the cam I would use. I like that cam for for drivability, But if you're trying to make good power, you need a bigger camshaft. How do you feel about truck cams in a daily driver? I think that they're a good idea. Running sloppy stage 2, new build, notice soft brakes, upgrading brakes away from any. Oh, your braking is soft? Is that what you're talking about? That cam, in my opinion, I don't know what size motor you're talking about, but if it's a 4.8, I don't like a sloppy stage 2 and a 4.8 unless it's a drag race car. I think that that's a terrible cam for a 4.8 for driving around. Would you consider using an OEM boost solenoid or a boost T? I don't know about AN lines. We on a drain for a turbo, we normally use like a 5/8 heater hose line. So whatever the AN equivalent of that would be is fine. That's more than enough. And I don't know what OEM boost solenoid, none of the LSs had a boost control solenoid, right? Did the blower stuff have that on there? It's going in a street strip car, full interior. What bigger camshafts would you suggest for my target goal? Is this the, well, Comp has bigger cams, so this is that modular Ford thing. But there are lots of other cams available now compared to when I did my testing. Does a high mileage LS already have enough ring gap for 8 pounds of boost? Maybe yes and maybe no. I haven't seen a correlation with mileage and ring gap on the motors that I've taken apart, and I've taken apart a lot of them. I love the cross beams, yeah. I get that. Rich, would you do a coffee and cars event in your area? It'd be cool to get all the local guys with you so we could show our builds. That would be cool. I would beat anybody anywhere for that. What is this? A sloppy stage 2 cam? That's the Elgin cam. 6 liter SS2, wondering if it... 6 liter sloppy stage 2. A sloppy stage 2 and a 6 liter should have enough vacuum for brakes. Do piston ring gaps wear out on high mileage engines? I haven't seen that. We've taken apart motors that have a couple 100,000 miles on them, and the ring gap is still in the teens. So and you can see the bore doesn't wear. I mean, there's on motors that have that much mileage on them. On an old small block Chevy or something, or a Ford, and less on a Ford it seems to be, but on the small block Chevys, the bore would actually wear, and you'd have a ridge at the top where where the ring is not wearing on the bore, so you have a ridge up there so much so that you can't get the piston out. But on an LS, on a junkyard LS, the piston comes right out. There's no bore wear there, and that's what would increase ring gap. The only way to increase ring gap is for the ring itself to wear. And like I said, I just haven't seen that. When you do dyno testing at E85, how does that transcribe to pump gas? We don't have E85 North California. It'll make less power on pump gas. It'll make less power on pump gas for 2 reasons. One, the E85 itself is going to help it make more power. And also when we run E85, we can run more timing and or more boost. But you have to be much safer and much more conservative on pump gas when you're doing it. So you're just going to make less power and you have less timing. Is there much chance of doing a turbo Dodge? Yeah, I have a turbo 5.9. I mean, I have a 5.9 that I'm definitely going to run a turbo on. I have a 360. And in the wrecking yard that we go to, a 5.9 or the 318 and the 360 are the same price, so it doesn't matter. 42-pound injectors, handle, 6 liter LS3, intake rec port heads, red hot cam. 40s times, well, if you multiply that, Ryan, multiply 42 by 16 and see what you get, and that will tell you how much power it'll support. What size cam for a junkyard 6.2 with a carb and a dual plane? Going in my Chevy Biscayne. If you want it as kind of a hot roddy deal, like I'd pick a hot rod cam. If you want it more as a driver that makes decent power, then I would pick a Truck Norris for that 6.2. I use an intake adapter plates to fit LS7 intake my LM7. That's not a good idea. You don't, an LS7 is not a good intake manifold. The truck manifold that you have, or a Trailblazer SS, would be the intake manifold that you want for your 5.3. There's E85 in Woodland on East Street. How come a lot of the people I talk to sell 408s is not good for boost because of the piston wear out on the skirt? That's not real. That's the longer stroke. They're talking about putting it more side loading on the wall, but the thing that they're talking about is something that's. Does that mean that the motor's not going to last 300,000 miles? It's only going to last 200. In my opinion, that's not a big deal. The side loading is like the same thing that people used to say about the Fords. Oh, the 347 just wears out. Well, I never saw anybody ever do an actual mileage test to find out how much more wear there was and how much, how long did that motor actually last? Nobody I know ever kept a motor like that and kept it running long enough to worry about, does it run 100,000, 200,000, 300,000? Like, how long does it last? So the 408 is the same thing. The nice thing though is you don't need a 408 when you have boost, because you can just turn up the boost and make the motor whatever displacement you want. I have a sloppy stage 1 cam, that's good. An LM7 with a fast 92 millimeter throttle body, 706 heads, currently has an L6 cam. Should I leave it or swap it for a sloppy stage 1? I don't think a sloppy stage 1 is going to be a big jump up from if you have an LS6 cam in it already. Michael, what's up? Yeah, we're here. We're here live. I got to. Yeah. To your tail. She's purring. Oh, it's my buddy. I don't know where the other ones are. There's a few other ones. Yep, we're doing it live. But I gotta get going in a couple minutes, so I gotta get back to the dyno. We're burning daylight. We're burning boost. I'm excited though, the 4.8's working. I'm allergic to cats. They stay outside, keep mice. I don't have any cats in my house. We only have dogs. We have 3 dogs. Is there any downside stroking engine with a positive displacement blower? I've heard people say it will shorten the RPM power band. You're looking at that the wrong way. For any motor, whether it's positive displacement or not, if you have the same heads and intake and camshaft, and you go from, let's say a 6 liter and make it a 408, it's going to make peak power at a lower engine speed. That's not because something bad has happened, that's because something good has happened. What has happened is the more displacement has basically tamed down the camshaft, and so it's making a lot more power. It's just doing it at an early RPM. If you want to rev it more, then you just put more camshaft in it. Do I need some kind of flex fuel kit to run E85? The injectors are fine. You need a pump and fuel lines that are rated for E85. Have you ever done a build on a 4-liter Jeep? No, I haven't, although I would like to. Is there an advantage to a 331 over a 347? I don't think that that's true. I mean, I wouldn't care about either one of those. The 347 has an advantage because it's going to make more power. Boost Illinois would be from another stock turbo car. Oh, okay, well that works fine. Or a manual boost T with a knob is essentially what I meant. You can run manual controllers. It's better to run an electronic controller because the boost response is, well, take that back. It's not going to change the boost response like how fast the turbo comes up. But it will change the way that the wastegate starts opening and when it starts opening. So if you have a boost controller on it, it'll just make more average power. But we've run manual stuff on a lot of things. Just bought an 03 F-150, a Lightning motor. Starts up once in a while. I get rattle at start. Runs strong. It could have, you know, if it's cold, it could be like piston slap or something. My truck does that. My truck has 330,000 miles. It makes noise when you start it, and then it goes away. I just ignore it. Those fuel lines in the modern cars are okay with the 85. If it's good with 10%, it's good with 100%. There you go. Some guys that are swapping stuff in, though, have to deal with that. Otherwise, use a Mac valve. Could a 350 Chevy with a Holly Sniper run E85? Yeah, it doesn't. The E85 doesn't care about the motor, and it doesn't care about the fuel injection that you're running it with. You just need to have big enough injectors to be able to run E85, because you're going to need 25 or 30% more fuel. What's one of the most surprising, unexpected things that you learned from a dyno session? The first big bang motor is probably the biggest surprise. The percentage of what do they have? They have the sensors that tell you the percentage of ethanol in the fuel, right? And then it'll adjust the tune automatically. It works good. Yeah, you could do that, but just you don't need to use your claws. Yeah, flex fuel sensors, that's what I'm thinking of. LPG is where it's at. Yeah, I haven't done any testing with that. You need it when you want to swap between gas and ethanol. Use an Arduino to use a GM flex fuel sensor to convert the voltage and tie it into my car's ECU. That's cool. That's a good workaround. Does bigger new fuel injectors require some kind of tune? Yeah, you can't just put them in. If you go from a 25-pound injector to a 50-pound injector, you're going to have to cut the fuel in half. Need a content sensor regardless because the 85 pumps are super inconsistent. I don't worry about that. When I go get E85 from the pump, I never even check it. We just run it on the dyno. It's E85. That's enough. Brian, yeah, you should run 6.5 thousandths per inch of bore. Yeah, Thumper, I agree. That's why I don't care so much about what E85 is from the pump. It all works. Are you familiar with electric turbos? I've seen them. I've never tested one. You run E85 spinning supercharger faster with 110-pound injectors. So we got 2 more minutes. Okay. I'll be happy if we're able to get enough boost in there where I would start thinking about getting gains from E85. Can you hear that? Can an LM7 survive low boost without rig gap? I don't know. Lots of guys do it. Lots of guys run boost on them and don't know what the ring gap is. But that's the problem. You just don't know, and it's not boost. It's not an amount of boost per ring gap. It's ring temperature. Is swapping from flat tappet to a roller and a small which should be worth the cost? I don't think so. I mean, I think you could make the power that you want to make with a flat tappet cam as long as, you know, everything cooperates. The cat's making the most of the last minute. What's your opinion on the amount of boost that 5.4 stock Lightning motor is good for? I don't know. I know that we've run 20 pounds on them with the Kenny Bell stuff, but you need to put ring gap in it though. .500 horsepower is a safe limit. What is it a safe limit for? The square ports fit over cathedral ports with an adapter. You don't want to run an adapter on a cathedral port head and try to go to a rec port intake manifold, or vice versa. You don't want to do that. The only time I ever recommend that is if you're putting a supercharger on, like an LSA supercharger, on a cathedral port application. Then you use those adapters. Otherwise, don't do it with an intake manifold. Well, why don't I recommend it? Because it loses power. The manifolds don't like the adapters. I've tested them both ways. So many guys run LS6 over a cathedral. An LS6 intake manifold is a cathedral. Admiral, you think an LS6 manifold is the best cathedral port manifold? That's not true. You have Lutheran ports? Yeah, you don't want to run an LS3 intake. I have that videos up. An LS3 intake manifold makes less than a Trailblazer SS does if you try to run an LS3 with adapters. I already have the test of that video's up. Oh, you're saying the sniper cross? Oh, that makes more sense. Yeah, that one is good. The problem is having dual throttle bodies on it kind of makes it a pain. Where's a good place to get a Trailblazer SS? Dorman used to make those, and maybe they still do. We got some cheap ones from Dorman, but that was a long time ago. Thervadian Buddhist ports. What about the pagan ports? Okay, guys, time to get going. I got to get over to the dyno, but thanks everybody for joining me, and I'll try to be back for more live feeds, and then we'll try to get this blower thing up as quickly as we can get all the dyno results. So should be cool stuff, man. We'll see you guys later.